Welcome to the Lift Your Story podcast with guest Maureen Gibbons, emergency physician, triathlon coach, sports nutritionist, and author. Hi, everyone. I'm Lori Ann. I am that gal from Milton, Ontario, Canada, and I'm with...
I am that guy. I am Roy Miller from Dallas, Texas. We'd like to welcome you to our Lift Your Story podcast.
In this episode, we're pleased to have Maureen Gibbons. She's an emergency physician, a triathlon coach, sports nutritionist, and author. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I've just got to ask you, what is it like being an emergency physician in a trauma center?
Some days delightfully boring, and some days not so much. So it really ranges. That's one of the interesting things about emergency medicine for me is I never know what's coming in. Mm-hmm. So some days, very rarely lately, are pretty laid back. Some days are just, because I don't just do trauma. So we do everything from the runny nose to a heart attack to trauma or whatever rolls through the door.
So you're a level 2. What are the levels, or what determines the levels?
So when you think of like TV shows or level 1 is what gets publicized the most. Level 1 has all specialties there at all times. So there's a neurosurgeon in-house, there's an orthopedist in-house. Ours, we have a trauma surgeon that has to be very quickly available, but they are allowed to go home and nap.
Okay.
So I'm curious about your book. Can you tell us a little bit about that? I love the title.
Yes, I would love to. Thank you. So yes, the book title is Happy First, How to Win Life in the Moment at Home, at Work, at the Gym, and even in the kitchen. A bit of a labor of love, I'm sure every book is. But I've wanted to write a book for about 25 years. And I kept writing and stopping and writing and stopping. And over the past really 12 years, but the past 4 years have sort of torn me down and allowed me to rebuild. And I rebuilt in a different way. And I was exposed to some teachings originally espoused by Sydney Banks and popularized by Michael Neal, who Michael Neal arguably saved my life back 12 years ago when I started reading his stuff and really kind of getting involved with that. So the Happy First book is more about kind of my explanation of we are happy first. We are born happy. We don't have to create happy, do more things that make us happy. Half the time we need to do less things that make us unhappy, but that's another story. So it's really about, I go through a little bit of very basic science. I'm not the science person. If you want science, go to Neil deGrasse Tyson. I'm not even close to that level. We won't even go there. But just the fact that we are all matter is made of energy, right? So it exists, and you exist from that same energy that makes up the trees and the sun and the clouds. And I mean, just that statement alone makes me think, oh yeah, I got this. We're pretty good.
I love that. And I love the last line, to the kitchen. I think that really brings it home, so to speak, right?
Yes. I've got some stuff on nutrition and habits. I mean, our habits are what really make up our life. So if you're going to, when you want to change something or improve something or not improve something for that matter, pick up a habit or two. And that's, because before we realize it, our habits are our entire life. Really, our brain likes to go in ruts. So it's just sort of how to retrain your brain and how to go into a better ruts, I suppose.
Yeah, it's interesting because, I know in your career, you're busy. I mean, that's on call probably and all that stuff. But, you say you want to be home to make the pancakes. I mean, it's really a conscious decision that I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this, right? I mean, you make that decision to in the work-life balance to make room for those things.
Yes, and that's been, I haven't always been great at that balance, to say the least. One of the things I talk about in the book is, for many years, I was very focused on separating like my professional life. And then, it was almost like I was a doctor, and then whatever I had left over, other people would get.
Yeah.
Instead of drawing lines around, yes, I am a doctor and I love being a doctor and I won't ever not be a doctor as long as I am physically able. However, that is not all of me. That is a very large part of me, an important part of me, but especially once I had our son about 8 years ago, it made me realize that, not only the child part, but my relationship with my husband, I wasn't really showing up.
That's not unusual for careers. And that's what, and they always say, like, there's really no absolute balance. It's just a matter of trying to do the best you can.
Yeah. But I mean, I think everyone struggles with that. Is my career, I've got to take care of my family. My career is important, and you always say, well, where are your priorities at? Well, it's not just, they're everywhere. They're all my priorities, but your career seems to pull a lot from you, unless you make a conscious effort to not make work the most important thing in your life. I mean, I'm speaking from experience. I thought if I wasn't there, they weren't going to survive unless I was there. And it took me a while to get past that, where I said, hey, I'm not working all these hours anymore. My kids are growing up. If I'm not there, I'm not going to get that time back. So I made the choice that, hey, if my kids have an activity, I'm going to be there. If I have to leave work and come back to work afterwards, I have no problem with that. But I'm going to be there for my kids because they're just here for that long.
Yes, I'm realizing that now that he's turning 8. It's like, wait, what happened? When did that happen? And it's interesting you say that. Emergency medicine, I do have the luxury of I don't have on call. So okay. When I go to work, I go to work. When I come home, I crash. My husband and I, he's also an emergency physician. So we've kind of grown up together, in the career. And we have things like what we call protected sleep. So, my mother lives in the area. She helps with our son. So like when I sleep, we know that after the shift, you get protected sleep, or before the shift, we've carved that out, and I do talk about that in the book as well. And the interesting thing, you say, yes, your priorities are everywhere. I just am really in earnest launching a coaching business, essentially based on the philosophy of the book. That's where you think the book's going to be the end, and lo and behold, oh, wait, there's more things to do. So, I've actually apologized to our son and my husband. I'm sorry, for a little while, this is going to take me some more time. And it's taking more time out, but it is a priority, because eventually over time, like you said, I can be at more events because I will have to work fewer clinical hours, but still be making a huge difference for people. But again, it's setting priorities, and there are only 24 hours in a day.
Well, my boss used to say, that's 3 8-hour shifts.
Right? You only have one.
He said, yeah, that's 3 8-hour work days, by the way.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to bring that up too, because being the triathlon coach and sports nutritionist on top of, working in the emergency, that does have to take quite a bit of your time.
Yes. I don't coach a lot of triathletes, and that's actually one thing where I've created boundaries. My husband and we have another coach that we employ through that company. They do the bulk of the coaching. I coach a couple of athletes. I do a lot of the nutrition work with them. I used to do nutrition consulting by itself, but it wasn't as fulfilling as I had hoped, I suppose. I didn't get to make as big of an impact. So that's sort of why I shifted. This new coaching will actually be very specific for doctors and nurses who are over burnout, overworked, overwhelmed, especially this past year. Oddly enough, I don't know why this happened this year for me in the book, but it is what it is. It's timely, if nothing else. But what the new coaching will actually be helping bring doctors and nurses from a point of overwhelm, from surviving to thriving fairly quickly. So they don't have to go through that 12 years with the big low that I went through and the fighting, the struggle. Instead, they can kind of hop over that river instead of having to drown in it for a couple of years and get through.
You know, it's interesting. We interviewed a nurse that suffered burnout, and she realized it, and then she went on to, like you say, she started a coaching business to help other nurses to keep them from getting burnout. So
yes,
and I can imagine in the medical field, especially the last couple of years, it's really been really hard, and I can see where you could get burnout pretty easy.
yeah, it's very difficult, because everyone likes to say, oh, self-care and boundaries, but there are times where, if you happen to have 3 critical patients come in at the same time, they don't just say, oh, wait a minute, hold that heart arrhythmia for a moment, I've got to use the restroom. I've got to go meditate for a minute before I take care of your chest tube, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's, we work in a very externally controlled environment. And part of that is, how do you deal with that? How do you work within an environment that you have very little control other than your own internal state?
Yeah. I don't know. I can't imagine, being in an emergency room and these people come in ambulances and you're sitting there doing this. Oh, I got to go over here. I mean, that would be stressful to me, and I thought I was a multitasker, but, maybe not there.
It's funny because I am 100% not a multitasker. I'm terrible. If I do not stay on task, I end up spending so much more time, which is funny because I do this job. But the interesting thing, my husband is very linear, and we joke, that there's a book based on this as well. His brain is waffles, mine is spaghetti. I call it the snow globe. There's a lot of stuff in there, and we do better when the snow just shakes out, settles down, and I can see things.
I love that.
Yeah, that's funny. But so you kind of alluded to the fact that maybe at one point you and your husband, well, I may say drifted apart, or is that really maybe not the accurate
That's a good,
term?
yeah, no, that's pretty accurate.
I mean, just due to the work and all this stuff there, and of course, I think that's a common.
Yeah. I mean,
it happens to people.
And I think it does too. And we've been through a lot. We met in graduate school for athletic training, actually. And so we applied and went to medical school together. So, we went through the application process. And at that time, of course, when you're 25, you think you know everything, which is entertaining. 45 shows up and you're like, oh God, I had no idea. Which is probably why, I've wanted to be a life coach since I was 25. And life said, wait, watch this. I'm gonna give you a really good platform. So we applied to medical school, went through residency. There were times in residency, some months, where we literally had 3 or 4 days off the whole month together. So, that alone, and that was, we could text at least. Actually, I'm pretty sure we had texting somewhere in residency. So that was at least a little bit better. But that's when I went to school. So there was no, when we were in college, we met just after college, there was no internet, for goodness sakes. But we were able to text, but it wasn't that big. It wasn't that, you weren't that conversive over text like we are now. Mm-hmm. And so they were I would see my husband for 3 days all month. And as much as I'd like to say you can build a good relationship on 3 days, it's tough. Drifting is a nice word. That was pretty critical back then too.
Well, I think it happens to a lot of people. You're both of you focused on this, and you just kind of tend to not focus on us as much.
Yes, it's I never had any idea how much the us required. I probably still don't. Come back to me in 10 years and I'll be like, listen, all that stuff I told you, I was totally mistaken. There's so much more involved. Um, but,
Yeah.
but yeah, so it's very intentional. Like you said, you've got to set the intention of, these things matter to me. My marriage matters to me. This, not even just the marriage. I mean, the dude I sit across the dinner table from, I kind of like him. He's a pretty cool person. And our son, it's like you said, he's growing up. He's going into 3rd grade, and it's it. Like, this is our chance to hang out with him. He's not going to be at home forever. Maybe we'll see. He might live in my basement, but we'll see.
Yeah, but the thing is, he's 8 years old, and you blink your eyes, he's 18, going off to college. And you look back and go, wait a minute, what happened? Where did it go? I mean, it goes quick. From my perspective, I thought, man, these kids are ever going to grow up. My God, it's taking forever. Then they get out of high school and they're on a plane, and I'm sitting there bawling, I can't, I can't believe it. We need more time. We need more time. You had your time.
That I was going to say, that's just it. I start to think, I get teary just thinking about it, because I feel like he's going to be in college tomorrow. And, I think about it, and I was always and being a physician, I know we're brought up this way, like through the educational system. And I was an athletic trainer before I was a physician. So we took like 6 years off and worked. But it was always what do we want to do next? What do we want to do next? Where do we want to get to? What's the next rung on the ladder? What's the next objective? Mm-hmm. And when you're looking like that, I'm not saying not to have goals. I have big goals. I always have big goals. I wish I could just chill out and not have big goals sometimes. Mm-hmm. But, when you look, and the time matters, and it's a balance, because you don't want to spend all your time sitting at home doing nothing, because then you're not an example of how to grow, or, how to get better, even just reading or sitting, just anything. I'm not a good example if I don't do things that make me better, if I don't exercise, if I don't try to eat well, if I don't, if I don't throw a vegetable or a fruit in sometimes. But, in that, those little, it feels like little things, but I really do think they're the big things. It's the fact that we do bedtime, and I sit in his chair in his bedroom still, even though he's 8. He always says, Mom, can you sit in my chair for a long time tonight? On days that I'm home from work. On days that I'm working, I'm in the chair for 20 minutes and I gotta go. But, that's those times are important to me, and I think they're important to him.
Just let me cheer you up a little bit.
I almost said.
All these little things you're doing, you don't realize, but then later on, when they get older, they'll tell you, oh, Mom, I can remember you did this for me. Oh, I love when you did that. Oh, Mom, it was great when you did this, So all the stuff you're doing, he may not tell you that now, but trust me, you will be glad you did them, because he will come back to you and tell you how much it meant to him.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Thank you.
Now, he might be 40 before he does it, but I'm just saying, he's gonna come back.
Right? I hear you. I'll be 48. And I'm like, yeah, finally just realizing, oh gosh, that was a big deal.
No, it pays off. Trust me, it does. The time you spend, you can't get it back, and it'll mean the world to both of you.
And there tends to be a thing too with parents. We always remember for some reason at the top of our mind are the things that we didn't do right or we didn't do well.
Yeah.
And, I was apologizing to my daughter, and she's in her 20s, for some of the stuff. And we had a rough time of it too. I went through divorce, and that really affected the kids. But she says, Mom, stop apologizing. You did the best that you could, and you're a wonderful mother. And I just started crying, because I had not heard that at all. And here I am, she's 25 and she's telling me that. And it was just, thank you. I really needed to hear that. And she said it from her heart. We were both there, hugging each other and crying. But she wanted me to just stop saying sorry, like move on. You did a great job. You did the best you could. And nobody's perfect. Yeah. So. Yeah.
That's for sure. And it's funny, you say that you're from Ontario. I grew up in Buffalo. And so my standard joke is, I just automatically apologize. I grew up 20 minutes from Canada. I'm sorry. That's how I am.
Yes, we are known for that.
Yes.
And it's not a lie either. I mean, we were sitting there and there was,
Oh.
going into the door. So of course you have to sort of, but someone will open the door, they go ahead. You go, no, go ahead. No, you go ahead. I mean, it literally happens everywhere.
I know. I know. I mean, it's so funny because as a kid, we used to drive over because gas was cheaper then. So we used to drive over the border to get gas. It's so funny saying this out loud. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. But yeah, so yeah, we were kids. Yeah, we used to pile in the car, go over to the border to get gas. And yeah, that's so funny. But yeah, we spent quite a bit of time, in Ontario. And but yeah, it's just the little things. And it's honest to God truth. It's one of my grounding places. I've got a few places in the world that are grounding places for me. And Canada and Canadians, I'm so sorry, Roy. Nothing bad about Texas. Nothing at all. I live there now. I'm just south of you.
Well, I've been to Canada a couple of times and I loved it. The people are so friendly, and I mean, it's a beautiful country. It's clean. Yeah.
There's that.
If it didn't snow, I wouldn't mind living there.
That's so okay. And there you have it. That is why I am up the road from Roy and not from Lorianne.
Yeah. Well, we flew into Buffalo when we went to Canada last time and saw Niagara Falls and went over. So driving down the street and I see all these poles, 10 feet, 20 feet, 30. So I'm thinking, the hell are these poles? So I stopped and got gas. I said, hey, what's the deal with these poles there? He started laughing. He said, where are you from? I said, Texas. He goes, well, no wonder. He said, that's how high the snow is. So the snow plows and everybody knows how high the snow is. Seriously? He goes, yeah, seriously. I said, glad I live in Texas.
Yep. Yeah. The first time I brought my husband, he grew up like outside of Cleveland. So, he was from Ohio. They got some lake effect snow. Mm-hmm. And the first time I brought him home, we get off the thruway because we drove and we get off the thruway and he says, how do I find the houses? I'm like, well, just kind of go between the mailboxes. So, well, you can't see the mailboxes. I don't know. Just guess between the houses. That's where the road is. The snow was just so high.
So where do you live, Maureen?
I am in the Woodlands, Texas.
Oh,
so
I
am.
Okay.
Yeah, about half an hour north of Houston.
Yeah. It's a great area. The Woodlands.
Yeah,
very
it's
nice.
Exploding. It's exploding.
Everywhere in Texas is exploding.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's ridiculous.
It's warm and we've got oil and gas money. That's.
And I think even the town Lorianne lives in Canada, she said it's one of the fastest growing in Canada.
It is. Yeah, Milton, it's just outside of Toronto. And what happened is, I guess around 2003, they finally got enough water supply to be able to build some more. Before that, they were restricted. And once that happened, my goodness, the developers were right in like that. And we just blew up. But it's nice. So I live in the downtown core of it. So you don't even feel the growth. You just, it still feels like country, little small town. As long as you don't go.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. I love the country. That's where I want to end up again. So,
Maureen, so how can people get your book?
So it is on Amazon. If you either, search the title Happy First with Maureen Gibbons, or just Gibbons will pop up. I've got a new standsmiling.com website that has a link to the book on there. That's also how you kind of get in touch with me for coaching services.
Okay.
So yeah, that's kind of all roads lead to Happy First, I suppose. Well, ideally, they really would.
Mm-hmm. And now, is your coaching program for the doctors and nurses, is it in development right now, or is it done?
It is live. We are actually booking our inaugural class right now, and it's the end of May. Ideally, well, we'll do an inaugural class that will have a bit longer to complete the program. So the program's done, it's up. I actually just hired my my first executive coach underneath me today. So that way we can spread the wealth a little bit and have some more Andrea and I will work together. That way we've got a lot more availability for both of us. So it's a combination of a course that we have. The course is built out with weekly group coaches, coaching sessions, and then individual coaching sessions as well. Just because, when I've been in programs, I think the group setting just does so much more. Not more, but we need both. You need both.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I
Important.
think it's great. So our listeners that are doctors or nurses, they can reach out to you and get on your coaching program.
That would be great. I want to help everybody that's ready to just be free of those awful feelings.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing today and being here with us. Really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
My
very much.
pleasure.
Okay.
Take care. Have a great day.
All right.
You too.
Bye. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Be sure to visit us at lifterstory.com.